right, Rick. I think it's time for us to bring this day home with a conversation that we talked about a couple times today. It came up in several of the conversations. It's one that is a really serious issue if we are attacking sort of the core of what's going to make the United States and national security stronger, and that is the talent pipeline. And you are going to be joined in conversation by a woman who I have admired for years, not only in sort of her government service work, but now she's working as well in the private sector, who is just a straight talker, a clear thinker, and I always hang on every word. So I'm just gonna let you reveal, because I'm all about surprises, our guest, and
Great.
leave it to the two of you to get after this issue of the talent pipeline, because really, it doesn't have to be this hard.
Totally agree. And I'd like to welcome Teresa Shea. Work together at the NSA, and she now serves as Vice President of Raytheon's Cyber Offense and Defense Experts Codex, which is the coolest name ever. Teresa, thanks for being here.
Hey, Rick. Hey, Suzanne. Thanks so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's just great to be here, and it's great to talk with you, Rick, especially about people. You've always had a passion for the people. You certainly have been a generous mentor to me and so many others across your career. So I'm just thrilled to be here. You know, I heard, and Rick, you may recall this too, Chris Inglis reminded us again this morning that this cyber environment that we're in is really about the technology, the people, and the doctrine. And we pay a lot of attention to technology and doctrine. And I think we've got to change the game when it comes to people. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And likewise, you have, throughout your career, been a strong proponent of your people. And I benefited from that, as did all of them, and in fact, the nation's security. So thanks for that. So let's jump right in. So what is the state of cyber talent today? How would you characterize it?
So first of all, can I just say that I think our country in particular has just this abundance of talent. If you look globally, we have about, depending on different estimates, 4.5 million people that are working in the cybersecurity space, with other estimates saying we need to grow that by at least 65%. Now, we both know that this environment continues to change. The offense has the advantage. We're seeing this increasing interconnectivity of devices as the Internet of Things becomes real. The data volumes are increasing. All of that provides every single day more and more vulnerabilities that need to be addressed. You know, it's disturbing. I know there's been a lot of news articles. One that I took note of because I have a passion for our small businesses. And we've talked a lot about the small businesses today. But if you look at the stats on when they have been successfully attacked, 60% of them that have been attacked are out of business in 6 months. That's just unacceptable, Rick. We have got to change this game. And all the surveys of both big and small companies that I could find gave percentages of 95% and higher that they don't have enough talent in this space. You know, add on top of that, the pandemic, often referred to as the Great Resignation, and now you're having employers, employees leaving their jobs in droves. They want to work from home. They want convenience options. They need that for their work-life balance. So I think there is, that all sounds really challenging and daunting, but there's much we can do to improve what we're doing today. And we should never be satisfied that we're done, because we won't ever be done.
I agree. Now, I know you feel strongly that this is a call to think about this challenge differently. Can you expand on that? Can you talk about your ideas?
Yeah, so first let me say I'm not the only one thinking that way. You know, we had the pleasure of hearing Kirsten talk from CISA talk earlier this morning, and she was talking about some of the actions they're taking in CISA to actually do different things for their cyber talent. I had in mind, several different things that we're doing that are working. First and foremost, though, across the spectrum here, we have got to change our marketing campaign. We have this perception that we're a bunch of geeks sitting in a basement wearing hoodies, hacking away on a computer. And that's just not the case. This is a space where you can come into this space, make a difference for the world, and also have quite a bit of fun while doing it. So that's number one, change the messaging. Number two is really about lowering the barrier to entry. If you look at the cybersecurity job postings today, they almost all call for a 4-year college degree or umpteen million years of experience. Now, I'm exaggerating, but they do call for multiple years of experience. If you're new into this field, how do you get into the space? How do you meet those requirements? And I think lowering that barrier to entry while committing to that talent with things like training, especially around this experiential learning that's tailored to the individual to raise their skill set, that would make a big difference to close the gap. When you're able to bring in new people into the space and then train them and bring them up to where you need them to be, that's a win-win, both for the mission and for the people.
And that's actually something that you've got experience doing. Everybody might not know that you used to run tailored access operations at NSA, and you trained ROC operators, or remote operations center operators, who came in, lots of them with high school degrees, and you trained them up to be fully functioning operators.
Yeah, and some of those were the absolute best that we had.
Some of your master. That's right.
Yeah. The third point I'd make is we have to all commit to mentoring newcomers. So if everybody, whether you're technical or you're in the managerial track, if everybody would commit, just take on one person, help them on their journey. Just be a sounding board, if nothing else. That can be invaluable to individuals that are running into obstacles they just don't know how to overcome. And then, the fourth point is about bringing automation into the space. And you and I talked about this a little bit before, Rick, but there is a lot of available automation. I'll just throw out one, for example, in the threat intelligence space. It really would buy back time for the cyber analysts so that they could work on the new, hard, emerging threats and focus on the highest priority assets. I just think that would, I've seen that make a difference, and I think that if we did more of that, it would really help. And then finally, we're going to have to accept the fact that work from home is here to stay. So let's figure out, how do we get cybersecurity professionals the ability to work from home? If we think about things like research, audits, even penetration testing, identity access management, all of those things could be done from home. We just have to be willing to take that risk and move in that direction.
Funny you mentioned that. I was just out in the West for a business trip, and I was going to look at the people who run a virtual SOC for an organization that I work with, and we came into the office, and they had the typical SOC room, with screens all over the walls and stuff. And the guy said, "Thanks for bringing us in. This is our first time we've had everybody in the office in 6 months, because they work from home. They do the SOC work from home." And so I think that's very achievable.
That's great to hear. We just need more of that. Yeah.
So do you think there are policy changes that need to happen to help address the talent gap? Are we getting in our own way on this, besides the lowering the barrier that you mentioned, which resonated with me because NSA, every ad started with must be a 4-year degree. But are there policy mods we need to make?
Yeah, I think there are, and you brought up the first one that we all have to change. I also think that we have got to be on the experiential learning, basically the training. We have to bring people into this space and provide that training, and that really is a lot of times that is a new and different policy approach. The third one I'd mentioned, Rick, is just the one about, you talked about kind of having the SOC analyst work, their ability to work from home. That's also policy driven. And having those remote work policies, that's new and different, but it's doable. We've seen it. You have those examples yourselves. We just need to do more of that in both the private space and the government. The government's going to have to lean in here and take more risk. And otherwise, it's just going to be fundamental to our ability to retain talent, is this ability to give them more flexibility.
Yep, I can see that. So as we're bringing all these people in, one thing that that strikes me is the diversity issue. There's something like 20% of the cyber workforce is women, and a low single digit percentage is minorities. So how can we do both those things? How can we bring more people in, but bring in a much more diverse set of folks?
Yeah, so, as you know, I'm very passionate, especially focused on the field of bringing more women into the STEM fields. And, we do a lot of things to commit to that across the spectrum. But this, again, I'll go back to the pandemic, and McKinsey issues a report every year, Women in the Workplace. And their Women in the Workplace report in 2021 cited that 1 in 3 women are considering leaving the workforce for those reasons. Now think about this. There is a possibility that they're going to return, right? If we could welcome all those women into the cyber field. I don't know if you heard Frank Cliffo's reference this morning to how the women won World War II. Did you hear that? Where he was talking about, he was talking about the cryptographers, right? All the men were at the front, and the women came in and did a lot of the cryptography during World War II. Let's use that same model here in cyber. After all, cryptography is the foundation of cyber, I would argue, right? So let's use that same model and welcome the women into this space as they're ready to come back. That means we got to be able to provide that flexibility for them. But I think there's a couple of points about diversity that are more general. Certainly, that diversity contributes to the bottom line. There's been multiple studies about that. A recent one by the Boston Consulting Group cited up to 19% bottom line improvement for companies that have diverse workforces. And if you look at the leadership teams for those companies and governments that have diversity of leadership teams, it's been proven they have better innovation and better financial performance. All that's pretty known. So creating the environment, Rick, where it's inclusive for all employees through that commitment to equal pay, organizational values that shape that positive culture, providing those robust mentoring programs that connect the women and minorities to senior mentors. And then the job descriptions, getting back to those job descriptions, they really should communicate a welcoming environment and emphasize the values that the company has, like respect and trust, that really underpin the behaviors. And I'll finally mention that walking the talk, that matters to people. They want to see that diversity is represented in those key senior leadership roles.
So all that makes sense to me. I think there's another issue that comes into specifically with women. Now, Microsoft did a study a couple of years back where they looked at girls in STEM programs, and it turns out that because of the socioeconomic development of the youth, that I think it was by 8th grade, girls who had been STEM were dropping out of STEM at alarming rates because it wasn't socially acceptable and they weren't encouraged and that sort of thing. So do we have to go back and address that issue before we can reap the benefits on the college or the high school back end of that?
Yes, yes. I think the majority of those studies, from what I've seen, the girls, women, they want to do a couple of things, right? They want to make a difference. They want to make a difference with what they do. It's bigger themselves. It's bigger than just themselves. I mean, please don't take that the money doesn't matter. Money matters, but they want to have they want to have a bigger contribution. And the second thing they really want to do is fundamentally they want to have fun, right? They want to work in groups. They want to work in teams. Let's go back to that hoodie. I got my hoodie on. I'm sitting in the basement, in all alone, hacking away. That whole perception we got to change. And there's a lot of really great efforts out there that are working towards that. We were part of the Girl Scout Cyber Challenge, and we had a hackathon, and it was Hack the Moon was the name of it. And thousands and thousands of Girl Scouts across the country working in groups, competing against each other to win this competition. And they had a fabulous time doing it. And they walked away from that, I think, with a different idea of what the cyber world can be like. So, and I know others have talked about many other organizations today that are doing similar kinds of things to get to that kind of, you're talking about, Rick, I think the root cause, right? Get to the root cause.
Yep. So one thing that has been proposed as well, speaking of root causes, is on the diversity, ethnic diversity side, is making facilities available for middle school and high school kids to work in, because of the school district thing. Lots of them don't have access to machines, don't have access to labs, don't have access to good instruction. And so one thing that was proposed was corporations taking that on and sponsoring that sort of thing. And I don't want to put you on the spot and say, well, how would you like to do that? But as a member of a corporation, is that the kind of thing that you think is a good idea?
So a couple things about that come to mind. First of all, we absolutely, I'm at Raytheon, so Raytheon absolutely sponsors. For example, Frank was also talking about the Alabama school, first high school in the country, Alabama School of Cyber down there in Huntsville, Alabama. And we're a major sponsor of that high school. I have a group of my guys down there that are actively involved in the mentoring and the training and the supporting of that high school. And they love it, right? They love it. So absolutely, we have got to commit corporate volunteer resources to that kind of thing, as well as corporate sponsorship to exactly that. On the side of putting these, the kids to work, that gets, I think, a little bit harder. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to, I don't want to go into that space. But corporations typically, when they hire somebody, they have IP, right? They have IP that they're trying to protect. And there's a certain age that you have to be, I think it's 18, to be able to sign the paperwork to legally protect the IP. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a challenge in the work front.
Yeah. I know NSA had the high school work study program where we brought in high school kids to do that at younger than 18, but that's the government and the rules are probably different. So,
I mentioned that.
So if you could do anything you wanted to do in terms of addressing the cyber talent problem, What are the top 5 things that we should do as a country, not as Raytheon, not as NSA, but as a country?
Yeah, and Rick, maybe we've talked about these, but they stay very, very, very front and center because it's a constant challenge, right? Change the messaging. Change the messaging. We need you as a nation to come into this space. It makes a difference for the security of the country, right? In each of us being interconnected. So change the messaging to being one of just that. Come join us, make a big difference in the world. The commitment to creating talent. And that means investing in individual skill sets, both for incoming individuals, but also for your current employees who constantly need, in this space, Rick, there is something new challenge every day, right? There's a new operating system, a new X, Y, or Z, and you have to continuously upskill your individual skill sets. So investing in that is key. And then number 3 for me is always going to be about this mentoring. Mm-hmm. You taught me how valuable that is. Continues to be invaluable to everybody I know. Both, and I think both the mentor and the mentee gain from that. I know I do. So, having everybody commit to taking on individuals to mentor them makes a big, big difference. Focusing on the people, having 100% focus of somebody that's, you've heard a lot about these new positions called the chief people officer. Mm-hmm. I think they're making a difference, right? You have somebody that can come in and be exclusively focused on the people, and then you get the outcomes of kind of that actionable diversity, if you will, that's really, really making a difference. So all of those things, I think, not just me, but, the nation could be doing. I am just, like you probably, I am just so excited about our nation's leadership today in the cyber field, right? Right? I just think listening intently to what they're telling us and following through and taking action on what they're recommending. They are experienced operators in this space that I think are going to make a difference, but they can't do it alone, right? We all have to step up.
So we talked about bringing people on. What about keeping people? Is it the same thing? Is it a slightly different take? Because one of the problems with high turnover rates is you had lots of training. And again, going back to our shared experience at NSA, I think you were there when the retention rate started to go down. Or maybe you left right before that started to happen. But when Admiral Rogers and I were looking at it, we put a trigger on, I think it was 10%. When it gets 10%, let us know. When it got to 10% very quickly. And as you know, when you've invested the time and the training and the mentoring, but really the technical expertise that you built up with these people, having them walk out the door was just crushing sometimes.
Yeah. So look, Rick, I don't know, 30 plus years you were in the government, is that right? I can't remember, but me as well. That's no longer going to be the case. I really believe we've got to have a more rotational ability to bring people in, take them out, put them in, bring them out. That just lifts all boats, right? And figuring out how to do that, and actually having the right, here's another policy that we have got to improve or change or eliminate, is our ability to bring people in and out of the government. And consequently, they can go into the private sector, go back to the government, and come back. I think that's really, we have to give them that flexibility. On retention in this space, especially again, during this pandemic with, the great resignation happening to all of us, has been a challenge, because a lot of the work especially if it's classified work, has to be done on-prem, right, in a SCIF. So how do you know what we do, Rick? I make waffles. We have waffle mornings. We have popcorn afternoons. We try to bring fun into the environment so that and we build camaraderie. We capture the flag teams, and we provide them with what they need, mostly Red Bull and pizza, and give them a space, and really try and provide that kind of camaraderie and stickiness that keeps people there, because we got a lot of competition from the big tech companies here, right? And they have big pocketbooks. So we used to say, Rick, this all the time: you can make a difference. The mission is a place where you're making a difference for the country, and consequently for the world. And that's more true now than ever, as we just heard all day, and that Ukraine talk was especially enlightening.
Yeah. Well, Teresa, is there anything else that that you'd like to say? A call to action to the listeners here.
Yeah. Well, I think we've hit upon all the actions that we need everybody to do. But again, this has been a great day. Thank you to you and Suzanne for putting this together, and especially thank you for having me. It was great talking with you.
Well, thanks, Teresa. Thanks for being here. And as always, your comments and your ideas are hugely valuable. And I'll have to figure out when the next waffle day is.
I was gonna say, I love waffles. I love waffles. And I have to say, and Teresa, I didn't get a chance to say this before she turned off camera, but a big thank you to her. She is literally someone who walks the walk. She has, met with me numerous times as I sort of left a career I was in for a long time, wanted to go start a new business, didn't really know much about it, and needed to build a network of people. And she really took the time to sit down and meet for lunch, or we didn't do waffles, but now I'm hungry for them. She's just someone who genuinely actually means what she says, and I really respect that a lot.